again, the goal is to change the byte pattern. So they don't want to have the same byte signature for the virus. So the way they do that is the morphing engine. This is actually the virus code. Okay, so it has the morphing engine. The morphing engine is the one that decides what new form the virus will take, the virus code will take, and any other code that needs to be run to really cause infection. But the entire virus code is kind of encrypted. Okay, and if you encrypt certain things, if you want to really run the virus code, it has to be first decrypted, right? So there is a decryption code attached to the thing, the virus code. And to do the encryption, decryption, you need a key. So that key is also attached as part of it. Okay? So what is unencrypted, or what someone can see, is actually the decryption code and the corresponding key. The real virus code will be encrypted. Okay? So if you have the plain text version of the virus signature, you cannot use it to capture this. Why? Because this is ciphertext version of the virus signature. Right? You have a virus code. These are very intelligent viruses, very difficult to detect. Metamorphic one that we saw and this one. Why? If I have a virus code, I am creating an encrypted version of it, right? You have a pattern for the plain text, right? That's a signature, right? You don't want this to be seen visibly as plain text. That's why you're encrypting. The virus writer encrypts the virus code. So what is visible to a virus scanner is the ciphertext, right? But now you can say, if I'm using the same key, of course the same encryption decryption algorithm, the same key, the ciphertext will also be the same, right? For a given plain text, given key, and the same encryption algorithm, the ciphertext is going to be the same, isn't it? You know from the previous chapter. So, if you really want it to be a very smart idea, each time you kind of spread around, you want the ciphertext to be different, even though the plain text virus code is the same thing. You have a whole virus code is encrypted, right? But you want the ciphertext generated each time to be different. So what they do is, of course the decryption algorithm is the same thing, but the key, if you change the key, you know from your previous chapter, the ciphertext will be different, right? So if you have, say, DES, that's the thing that we saw in this code, right? If I use, say, K1, I'm going to get some C1. But for same plain text, if I use some K2, I'm going to get some C2, right? So I'm going to change the key each time I spread around.
But how can you do that? I mean,
the morphing engine, that's what I'm going to say now. So let's say initially this is how it is, and this virus is activated now. So first what happens, the decryption code runs on this key. It decrypts what? This portion. So it is decrypted. So now what is activated? The virus code inside, right? So as I said, within the virus code you have what? The morphing engine. The morphing engine is the one that decides what new form it will take. So the virus code is running, infecting another file, right? So now the morphing engine will decide what should be the new key. And it will then use that new key to encrypt itself. The new key will be now attached to that file, and then the decryption routine, the code for decryption. You see that? So the key is not changed. So the ciphertext that you get out of this encryption process will be changed. So the virus signature, the pattern will be different now. Even though it's the same virus, the ciphertext is different. So the binary bit pattern will be different now. Now still there's a kind of catch that they have to take care of. What is that? The decryption code. If every antivirus scanner, or if any antivirus scanner can be programmed with the decryption code of all common encryption algorithms. No, this is all common encryption algorithms, right? Say DES or RSA or any encryption algorithm that you come across. If antivirus scanner can be trained, okay, to know the code pattern or structure of every encryption decryption algorithm implementation, then wherever it comes across a code pattern that resembles the code for a decryption algorithm, it can raise a flag. It looks like a what is that, encrypted polymorphic virus, right? So sometimes antivirus scanners do that. And it's always like, I think I told you before too, both people try to outsmart each other. So a virus writer will first try to change the key and make the ciphertext look different. But just making the ciphertext look different is not sufficient, because an antivirus scanner can look for a decryption routine that looks similar to a standard decryption algorithm. So now the virus writer will do what? He can make it you can have different implementations of it. For example, the same encryption decryption algorithm, I can implement it in different ways, right? Could be possible. So when the polymorphic engine tries to create a different key, it will try to create a different form of the decryption code, right? You know, some algorithms can be implemented in different ways. So now the antivirus scanner has to be programmed or to be trained to detect different forms of implementation of the same algorithm. So if you have been using, say, DES, you can do some, each people can do little bit different implementation, right? So an antivirus scanner has to be trained to detect small variations in implementation. So that's why again a pure signature based approach to antivirus scanner will not work, because then look for an exact match. So you have to go for an anomaly-based detection, where if you see some small variations in the code, then you can really say it's just same thing. It does the same thing. It's slightly modified. Okay? So sometimes I don't know that I told this class. When I have a programming class, I tell students don't try to copy and just change the variable names or something. It's the same thing that you're doing from the other person, and it's a wrong approach or wrong logic, right? If it's the right logic, you can say there's only certain ways you can do this program. But if it's the wrong logic and two people have copied, right, and you just change the variable names and moved around some piece of code, then I can still say it's the same thing you're taken from another person. So that's what is called a kind of training, and this is where artificial intelligence comes up. You may not realize how AI is being used. So the antivirus scanners have to be trained because they cannot be loaded with all the signatures of all different possible implementations. They have to be intelligent enough to detect that this is the same thing as the other code. Okay? Clear? So those are the two forms of viruses. Let's see. Now that's why the antivirus scanners could be configured based on signature schemes. Some these are just theoretical names for these three different ways we can program antivirus scanner. A conjunction signature means it has to look for the same pattern as a consequence, like one after the other. Okay, set of strings. That's actually called sequence signature in a particular order. Conjunction means the set of strings must appear, but in any order. That's called conjunction. Sequence means the same one after the other. Okay, so one pattern, one binary pattern, followed by another binary pattern is called a string. One string after the other. And the probabilistic is what will be more effective, because the first, especially the sequence signature is very signature based, whereas conjunction and probabilistic are more anomaly oriented. Because in the probability based, if you see certain strings anywhere in the virus code and certain numbers, say for example, out of the 10 strings you have programmed 10 pieces of binary code that you have programmed with, if you are able to see say 7 out of the 10, then you can raise a flag. It could probably be a virus code just moved around. Especially when you have metamorphic virus, where you just split the virus code into different parts and move around things, then this could be an approach you can use to detect. If you're programmed with certain strings, and these are the strings that should appear anywhere in the code, and if you can see them with a certain probability, then you can raise an alarm that it's probably a virus code. Okay? And also, if you look at, if you see more jump instructions in a program that you scan, that could be another indication, because typically you don't use that many jump instructions or kind of those dummy instructions, right? So when an antivirus scans a program and it notices a lot of jump instructions used, then you can again raise an alarm that it looks like a virus code. Okay, so those are some of the strategies we use. And also in the previous class, remember I said when a virus gets when a virus infects a file, the file size increases, right? Because it has to be attached to the program, isn't it? Somewhere on the program, right? So, and what strategy viruses use to get around that? Compression. They sometimes compress the host program so that the whole size is still the same. Understand? So this is the host program and this is the virus code. The size increases, right? So to kind of make sure it's the same size, they kind of compress this host program, compress the host program, and then have the virus code so that you don't see a difference in the size of the file. This is a very common strategy they use. So how again the host program is run? The virus code has a control, right? So when the program is activated, the virus code runs first. So it knows how to decompress that host program and lets the host program to run. So the user doesn't notice whether it's compressed or not. As long as the executable is running and doing what it's supposed to do, the user doesn't notice it, right? This is the strategy. And in order to make it very effective, viruses normally don't target to attach to small files. Why? If they attach to a small file, they cannot compress that file further. And the virus code has to be reasonably large, right? So the virus code is larger than the file to which they are attaching themselves. It is possible to detect the increase in the file size, right? So I have a question in the question bank. Why viruses prefer a larger file? This is the reason. If they attach to a smaller file, they cannot really compensate with compression the increase in file size that easily. So that's why they target attaching themselves to a larger file than a smaller file. And the antivirus scanners make use of this. What they do is, they create some files called bait files. Bait files means again like a honeypot kind of scenario, or some files which are not really meant for anything. They're just there in the system. When an antivirus scanner is running, it will create those files. Okay? And what it will do is, it will compute, the antivirus scanners will compute the hash values of these files. Say sometime when an instant they are running, like sometimes you program your antivirus scanners to run at early morning when you're not using the system, right? If anybody does that. You can program your antivirus scanners to run at certain frequency, every week once or every day once or anything like that. So a particular time they are run, they'll create this bait files and they'll create a hash value of this bait file. The next time they run, they'll again go and recompute the hash values of those bait files. And they see if the hash values are still the same. If the hash values are not the same, they know those bait files are not used by the system or by the user who is using the system, right? Because as I said, they're not used for anything, they're meant for anything. So if the hash values of these bait files are changed, it means most likely a virus was trying to attach itself to those bait files. That's why the hash values are different now, right? So that's a strategy, one strategy antivirus scanners can use to detect the presence of a virus in a computer, in a system, right? So they try to get the bait files and compute the hash values and store it in the database, and when they rerun, they recompute the hash values of those bait files and see if they are still the same. If the hash values are different, it's likely possible that those bait files are infected with the virus, and that's why the hash values were different. So they can raise a flag telling that system, they're not able to say which file is infected, they'll just say the whole system is infected with the virus, and they'll probably remove the virus if they can remove it. Clear? And that leads to what is called a quarantine. You know what's a quarantine or anything? So when your antivirus scanner is scanning your system, it basically looks at every file, right? And if it sees a suspicious file that could be infected with a virus, or the file itself is a virus, then it puts that in a kind of a repository. It's basically a virus is deactivated, it cannot run from the quarantine. But remember, some of the files could be genuine files. It may just match certain bit to the pattern, the virus signature, and it could flag them as a potential virus, right? So it doesn't want to delete those files right away. So that's the purpose of doing this quarantine, so that after the whole scan process is over, it will show all the files in the quarantine, and you can go one after the other and remove and ask the scanner to remove those that you want to remove. And some you may say this, I don't think it's a virus, you may want to put it back, then it will remove them from the quarantine, put it back in the original place where it was. So the quarantine is basically used to have the user go through all those files that this antivirus scanner has flagged as a potential virus, and kind of decide whether to retain them or delete those files.
How can the user find out if it is infected or that it needs to be quarantined?
It's up to his judgment. For example, there may be some files which I created as a user. I know that's not a virus file. So if I think I need those files or I don't think they have virus on it, I could just select that option thing, and then it will not be deleted. Yeah, so if you really run an antivirus scanner, last time I did certain things like, I think adware, what was the full name of it? Adware? Huh? Adware? Yeah, there's an antivirus scanner by that name, adware or whatever. And it gives you the option of really going through those details and unselecting those things that just quarantine so that they won't be deleted. And you can interact with those files only through that antivirus program. Once it's quarantined, you cannot really open that file. Say, for example, there is a file in a C drive, and that file is now in the quarantine. You cannot go to the C drive and open the file anymore. You can interact with the file only through the quarantine. And once you flag it as not malicious, then you can come back and open. So once a file is quarantined, basically, you cannot use that file or access the file through any other means other than through the antivirus program. Okay? So that's the kind of security feature. So I think we covered all of this. So there are two math problems which I want to go through, but let's see. Just a quick thing. Truth and misconceptions about virus. I think we discussed a couple of them already. A virus cannot infect hardware, that's true. It targets only the software or the firmware. Firmware means something like a BIOS. Okay, so something that is programmed on a hardware, it can infect that. A virus can affect only Microsoft Windows systems. It's false, right? But there's a familiar misconception that Windows systems are more vulnerable to get attacked by virus. The reason is very simple. It's not that it is having a lot of bugs in it. The reason is there are more users using Windows, and there are less users using Mac or any other operating system. So if a virus, right, again the question that you asked, why people develop viruses? They want to create the maximum impact, right? So if they develop a virus that targets Windows systems, many users are going to be affected. If they develop a virus affecting Mac systems, not that many users are going to be affected. So as more people are going to use Mac, there will be more viruses for Mac, so and so on. Okay, so it's just they want to kind of create more impact by developing those viruses. That's the only reason. It's not that one operating system has more security. Of course, there may be some features, but it's not like one is totally dummy, kind of having a lot of bugs, and the other is very good. It's not like that.
But Macintosh, they have their own protection, though, right?
Yeah, each operating system has its own protection scheme also. Most of the times it's very common. Some of them may be very unique characteristic, but it's not like one operating system is having a lot of bugs. That's why it's infected with a lot of viruses. It's not like that. And virus can modify hidden or read-only files? Yes, they can modify. Okay? And they can spread only on disk or read only? No, they can be through any documents that you share. Any mechanism of sharing files will be fine. Now, virus cannot remain in memory after a complete power off, power on, reboot. I say it's true, it's not, it could be, you have to argue it, but if you say true, you say, if a computer is powered off, the virus goes away. It goes away from the RAM. When I say memory, it's RAM, that's why I say it is true. But it doesn't go away from the hard disk, right? Remember I told, if a virus is loaded on the main memory to be run, right? So when you turn off the machine, contents of the RAM are wiped out, right? So the virus code in the RAM is wiped out. But if it's a resident virus means what? The one that goes back and stays on the hard disk, then it's still on the hard disk. Okay? Only what's called a transient or memory resident virus will be lost, whereas a virus that is resident on the hard disk will not be lost. Okay? And okay, now let's look at these two problems and then we'll see what we can do. Alright, so suppose there's a new computer virus by this name V1Q, which is both polymorphic and metamorphic. Ron has a new malware detection program by name Death virus. It is 95% accurate to detect this virus. So there's an antivirus scanner that is 95% accurate in detecting this virus. Okay? So, which means if this computer is infected with this virus, the Death virus can correctly detect this 98% of the time, and if a computer is not infected with this virus, it can detect this fact 95% of the time. That's what the 95% means. So it turns out that the VN1Q virus will only infect any given computer the probability of 1%, which means given any computer, what's the probability is infected with the virus? 1%. Okay? So now let's say numbers, and you run the Death virus scanner on your computer, and unfortunately you get a message telling that your computer is infected with VN1Q. So what's the probability that your computer is really infected? You see what's the problem? There is this virus, and any machine can be infected of this virus only with the probability of 1%. Okay? And there's an antivirus scanner that detects this virus 95% of the time. Okay? So you are going to run this antivirus scanner on your machine, and it says that your machine is infected. If you say that, you see these two probabilities per person. Any machine can be infected only with the probability of 1%, and this antivirus scanner can detect correctly only 95% of the time. So there are still some false positives possible. Right? So given all these things, what's the probability that your computer is really infected or not? Okay? So that's what we want to find. So the way I do that is, I just pick this 4000 because the math becomes easy. You can pick any number to start with because the starting number is not really an issue. But let's say there is a campus that has 4000 computers. Okay. So your computer on which you are running the antivirus scanner is one among those 4000 computers. Alright? Now, again, there is only 1% probability any computer is being infected, right? So if you have a network of 4000 computers and this virus can infect only, like there's a chance of only 1% probability of infection, then out of those 4000, only 1%, which is 0.01, right, is infected. So only 40 computers will be really infected in a network of 4000 computers, right? Because there's only 1% chance any computer is infected. So if we have, you do 40 over 4000 is 1%, right? Now, so which means the remaining 4000 minus 40 or not infected. Right? Now, remember that antivirus scanner can detect the presence of a virus 95% of the time. Right? So there is a 5% chance that there will be what? False positives, which means what? There is no virus, it says it's a virus on the computer. Right? So 3960 computers don't have virus on them. And you're running this software on all the 4000 computers, right? And these many computers don't have virus. But this software can say 5% of these 3960 computers have virus on them, because that's the percentage probability of getting false positives, right? So the number of computers that do not have a virus, but are what? Flagged as being infected is how much? How many?
3960 minus 5%.
3960 is the number of computers that are not really infected at all, but it can say 5% of them are really infected, right? False positive. So this is 3960 times 5%, 0.05. So that comes out to be 198. So 198 computers among those 4000 computers are not really infected, but the antivirus scanner raises a flag that they are infected, right? So how many are there which are really infected? What is that? Now, remember you are running this software on all those 4000 computers, right? And 40 computers are the number of computers that are really infected, right? Now, can the antivirus scanner identify all those 40 computers? No, we can identify only 95% of them that are infected, right? There are totally 40 computers that are infected. But the antivirus scanner has only a 95% chance it can detect any really infected computer. So out of those 40 computers that are really infected, only 95% of them are really detected as being infected. Clear? So only 38 of these 40 computers are really being flagged as infected, even though all the 40 are infected. You see?